95 adults lost just 80 minutes of sleep a night for 6 weeks. And their bodies changed anyway. They gained close to half a kilogram. Their waistlines grew about half a centimeter. And they spent 17 more minutes a day sitting still instead of moving. No diet changed. No exercise plan changed. The only variable was sleep. And it was not even a dramatic cut. Closer to the difference between going to bed at 11 and going to bed at midnight. Researchers at Columbia University ran this as a randomized crossover trial, meaning the same people went through both a well-rested stretch and a sleep-restricted stretch. So their own bodies served as the control. That design is what makes this result worth taking seriously instead of shrugging off as another wellness headline. Today you get what the study actually measured. Why losing sleep might make you move less rather than eat more. Who this applies to and who it does not. And the honest limit on turning a 6-week lab result into a lifelong prediction. The study combined data from 2 randomized crossover trials, published in July 2026 in the Annals of Internal Medicine. Led by researcher Marie-Pierre Street-Onge. It enrolled adults over the age of 20 who normally slept at least 7 hours a night and who already carried elevated risk for heart disease or type 2 diabetes, the population where sleep loss is most often blamed for downstream harm. Each participant completed 2 separate 6-week stretches in random order, one with their normal adequate sleep and one with their sleep window cut by roughly 90 minutes. Because every participant experienced both conditions, researchers could compare each person against themselves rather than against a different group of people with different habits, genetics, and lifestyles. That crossover design is a meaningfully stronger setup than the observational surveys that dominate most sleep and weight coverage, where researchers simply ask people how much they sleep and how much they weigh. Then guess at cause and effect. Here, the sleep loss was assigned, tracked, and measured directly, which is what lets the researchers say the sleep loss came first and the changes in the body followed it. The most interesting number in this study is not the weight gain itself. It is the 17 extra minutes a day participants spent awake and sedentary during a sleep-restricted stretch. That points toward a mechanism many people do not expect. Sleep loss may drive weight gain less through hunger and overeating and more through simple energy conservation. A tired body tends to default to stillness. Skipping the walk, taking the elevator, sitting through the errand instead of standing for it. 17 minutes sound small, but stacked across 6 weeks it adds up to hours of movement that never happened. The researchers also tracked waist circumference specifically, which grew by about half a centimeter. A detail that matters because waist size tracks more closely with the fat storage patterns linked to heart disease and diabetes than total body weight alone does. None of this required participants to eat differently. Their environment, their food access, and their exercise routines were not the variables being tested. The only thing that changed was how long they slept each night. And their bodies still adjusted their behavior and their composition in response. This trial was not run on a random cross-section of the population. Every participant already had elevated cardiometabolic risk factors. And every participant started from a baseline of decent sleep, at least 7 hours a night before the study began. That means the result speaks most directly to adults who are already sleeping reasonably well and already carry some risk for heart or metabolic disease. Not to someone who already sleeps 5 hours a night out of necessity. And not to a healthy 25-year-old with no risk factors at all. The researchers themselves frame the finding as evidence that protecting adequate sleep may help this specific at-risk group avoid additional weight gain. rather than as a universal rule about sleep and body weight for everyone alive. 95 people is also a modest sample size for a trial claiming a broad public health message. Even with the strength of a crossover design behind it, the signal is real within this group. Under these conditions, but the study was never built to tell you what happens to a teenager, a shift worker, or someone with chronic insomnia. The number getting passed around online, that losing 90 minutes of sleep a night could cause clinically meaningful weight gain over a year, is an extrapolation, not something the study actually measured. Researchers took the 6-week result and projected it forward, assuming the same rate held steady for 12 months. Bodies do not reliably work that way. People adapt, habits shift, and a short-term lab effect does not always scale linearly into a long-term outcome just because the math says it should. The study also relied on a laboratory setting with monitored sleep schedules, which is not exactly how sleep loss plays out in an ordinary chaotic week of late nights, early alarms, and inconsistent bedtimes, and 1 pound of weight gain, while statistically real and consistently measured, is a modest physical effect, not a dramatic transformation. The honest version of this finding is narrower than the headlines. In a controlled trial, in an already at-risk group, mild sleep loss caused measurable changes over 6 weeks. Whether that same pattern compounds into serious long-term harm is a reasonable hypothesis, not a proven fact yet. This one is signal, with a boundary drawn around it. The core finding holds up. A randomized crossover trial found that mild, realistic sleep loss caused measurable weight gain, waist growth, and increased sedentary time in adults already at risk for heart disease and diabetes, without any change to diet or exercise. That is a real causal result from a well-designed study, not a correlation dressed up as one. The noise is in how far the finding gets stretched. From a 6-week, 95% trial in an at-risk population into a universal warning about anyone who stays up late. The study proves sleep loss can move the needle on weight in this group. Under these conditions, it does not prove a fixed math of 90 minutes lost equals a specific number of pounds gained per year for everyone. If you are already watching your heart or metabolic risk, this is a real reason to protect your sleep schedule. If you are extrapolating it into a guaranteed 1-year outcome for yourself, that part is noise. Subscribe for the health headlines that get separated from what the actual trial proved. Signal from the noise. Every week,